Some people believe that life is pointless. Some of them have even committed suicide because they were convinced, and of course they were depressed about it, that no true purpose for our existence can be secured. Life is meaningless. And at certain times I have even argued so myself. So I can still remember it vividly, where I was lying on the floor with bitter tears of frustration in my eyes and asked myself, why don't we just all kill ourselves? Even the famous French existentialist philosopher Albert Camus said that suicide is the single-handed most important question philosophy must answer. After all, if nothing in life makes any sense, why should we keep on living? Why should we keep going and get up every morning? If you know how this feels like, then rest assured, you are not alone. This has nothing to do with clinical depression or pathological thought. No, it is a heavy, difficult, but very relevant intellectual question. But it's more than that. It is an adventure we all have to embark on to make sense of our own lives. It is a wild cocktail of all sorts of intelligent ideas and emotion. It can be drop-dead frustrating. Sometimes the question of why are we here can drive us almost crazy. But discovering bits and pieces of an ultimate answer that actually makes sense and which in fact enriches our lives is enticing. It's thrilling. It's difficult to keep pushing through and thinking stubbornly about the tough questions of the universe. But eventually, it is both scaring and amazing at the same time. It's hard, but it's enlightening. It's crushing and at the same time mysteriously wonderful. This is the sort of question that I want you to take seriously. Asking real and tough questions is no cupcake, but it's definitely more rewarding than perhaps any other thing we could possibly imagine. I want to invite you to join me on this journey, so that's exactly why I want to wrestle with you with this very question in my book, Discovering the Meaning of Life. It has become en vogue for modern philosophers to claim that there can never be a true and objective purpose for our lives. We can only dream up our own ideas and end up with our very own subjective answers. So you can only arrive at a solution that may be true for you, but for me it wouldn't mean anything. Likewise, the answers that could perhaps be relevant for me might eventually ring hollow for you. We call these responses subjectivist answers, because they are not imagined to be true for all of us. On closer inspection, though, it becomes clear very fast that subjectivist answers, by and large, are nihilistic answers, which is a fancy way of saying that they don't provide us with an actual and generalizable answer after all. No, they only hold that real and objective answers to the problem of human life do not exist. In short, many thinkers today contend with the idea that life is eventually pointless, and then they leave it at that. I think this is a devastating and cowardly way to handle a dilemma that is so unbelievably important to all of us. And I wholeheartedly disagree, because I think that there actually is a stable and objective meaning for us to be discovered. But this trend amongst modern philosophers, authors and academics is understandable, since our societies have been so strongly shaped by the cultural developments in the last 100 years or so. Some people think that the Enlightenment period in the 18th and 19th century and the critical rationalism has brought us to this place. But this is not really true, because back then they were still living in a time where people sought after eternal truths that could be universal and steadfast. One key force in these younger developments was the showdown of existentialism, which counted amongst their ranks philosophical pop stars like Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, or Simone de Beauvoir. We will later talk about them a little more, but one thing is for sure. They have handed us a loaded gun ready to blow up in our faces, because they refused to give weight to classic universalist approaches, while at the same time refusing to provide us with a more stable solution themselves. Now, on the other hand, we find the exact opposite. Those are the ones that claim that all the answers are already present in a fixed philosophical system or in religious scriptures that have been set centuries or even millennia ago. They think religion or old wise sages can give us the final answer of what we are here for. Religion, theology, and tradition are the perhaps most prevailing go-to places where many people want to find their answers to such deep problems. But without further arguments and critical reflection, these solutions remain unsatisfactory for many of us. So where do we start? If postmodern relativism and conservative traditionalism appear to be equally problematic, then what are we left with? Should we, as many dominant voices nowadays tell us, just simply give up the fight and accept our dismal situation? Should we embrace the sheer meaninglessness of the universe, while at the same time try to not go crazy at the sheer thought of it? And is this even possible? Well, it's always easier to tear something down than to build something up anew. And it takes just a few seconds to criticize an idea, but sometimes a lifetime to propose a new solution. Hence, I have become convinced that it is best to start at a common ground. This common ground are two premises that probably all of us are able to share. And then we can work ourselves up from there. The first premise is something exists rather than nothing. This doesn't sound sensational, does it? It's probably difficult to find someone who would deny that something does exist. This person would have to claim that nothing exists, but then who does the talking? Who does the thinking? Who is watching this video clip or reading the book if not you? And you, including the person who is denying his or her existence, belongs to the realm of something, right? The second premise is that there is a reason for why things exist and how they do so. Or we could phrase it differently. Namely, we could say that there is logic that can be applied to these things. If this wouldn't be the case and rationality de facto unreal, then yes, nothing would make any sense. Nothing could make any sense because things like reason and logic would not exist, as they are typically conceived of as the mechanisms to confer meaning to objects and actions. So here we start. Something exists, and there is logic to make sense of things. How do we get from such basic ideas to an objective meaning of our lives? Well, this is the journey I want to invite you to. In the upcoming video clips, I want to introduce you to the core ideas around my new book, which tries to make a case for a novel approach to this endeavor. I want to give you a very rough overview through the most important concepts in the philosophy of meaning, what psychologists know about our subjective meaning-making mechanisms, how philosophy and religion has tried to provide us with an answer to the most important question of the universe. I would like to introduce you to the so-called critical method of transcendation, which is a rational principle to deconstruct propositions of purpose. Then I want to present you with some new arguments about the possibility and actuality of the objectivity of meaning that are presented in my book. Eventually, we talk about a spiritual existence and a model for universal purpose. But make no mistake, in these short clips, we obviously don't have enough time to go over these ideas in depth, which are discussed at length in philosophy classrooms. But I hope to give you, in these brief minutes of the upcoming clips, some interesting ideas to work with. And if you're really interested in the quest, then you're more than welcome to dig a little deeper by reading through my book, Discovering the Meaning of Life, a philosophical adventure into the ultimate question. So, stay curious.